So there were 452 illegals apprehended at the Hyundai mega plant construction site yesterday near Savannah. And I was the one that reported the information that I had to ICE. But it goes beyond just someone working illegally. Let me explain to you. These people are working for slave wages. Some are not getting paid. Some are being trafficked. They send money home to their country. They give money to their handler. They have hardly anything left. They live in homes 5 families deep, have no quality of life. It's modern day slavery. So if you think that ICE is just going in and ripping people out of their jobs, these hardworking people that want a better life, well, guess what? Politicians have really screwed these people, because when they came here, they thought they were, hey, the border's open, we're coming in, we're going to get the 5-star treatment, and we can go to the big Walmart, and we can live in a 5-star hotel, and that's just not how it is. It's very bad conditions, very inhumane, and the Biden administration started a humanitarian crisis. So y'all can't just look at it like they're ripping good people off the job. They're probably saving their lives in the long run.
So everything that you just heard on that TikTok video, every single thing that woman said was a lie. Now, maybe you have heard who she is. Her name is Tori Branum, B-R-A-N-U-M. She's running for Congress in the state of Georgia. And listen, you and I both know Georgia has sent some pretty interesting people on behalf of the Republicans, because I didn't have to tell you she was a Republican, right? I didn't have to tell you that she's MAGA Karen, do I? But Georgia has sent people like Marjorie Taylor Greene to Congress, so we know exactly what Georgia is capable of doing here. But this crazy ass lady called ICE on that electric battery plant in Georgia, where more than 375 South Korean nationals were taken into custody by ICE and other federal agencies. And let me tell you the updates on this, because it's going to blow your mind. Number one, I am a proud Korean-American immigrant. I am first generation. My parents are from Seoul, South Korea. Number two, South Korea, its government is taking care of business. And when I tell you what they're doing, you're going to ask yourself, why in the hell is our own federal government shitting all over our commercial, our commerce relationships, our trade relationships with our allies and our partners? But why is our federal government not treating us better as citizens? Oh, well, I can tell you it's because you have in the Oval Office a convicted felon by the name of Donald Trump. So anyway, this crazy biatch, Tori Branum, calls ICE. ICE rolls up. And listen, she was alleging shit from trafficking of people to, I mean, listen, her video's nuts, right? Because at the beginning, she's like, oh, these poor people, they're being trafficked, etc. And then she's like, oh, no, but Biden opened the borders. And so all these people came in through our open borders to go to the Walmart. Alrighty, so let me get you up to speed on the very latest. And let me tell you what's interesting is my information is sourced from where? South Korea. This is why international news is so important. I like to say that sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, right? Sometimes we're very arrogant here in the United States about our information sourcing, right? We're like, oh, we're the United States. And listen, we have, well, we used to be, I think, the right to be proud that we were Americans in that way. But in South Korea, I have been sourcing this information. And so, for example, the Korea Herald, let's talk about what just came out today. The government of South Korea is going to launch a probe, an investigation into allegations of human rights violations at the hands of federal agents when its nationals, its South Korean nationals were taken into custody and detained. I mean, in the photographs are very clear. Shackled, handcuffed at the hands and at the ankles. Here's the deal. It were 317 South Korean workers were detained on September 4th of 2025. Do you want to know when they finally got to go home? This past Friday, September 12th. So for 8 days, South Koreans were held in detention by immigration authorities. Testimonies that have been provided by these detainees have alleged abusive conditions at the detention facilities in Georgia where they were being held, including human rights violations and racist remarks made by U.S. ICE officials directed to those Korean detainees. This is my shocked face. Are you shocked that ICE officials would be using racist and derogatory remarks to detainees? sounds very much on brand. The Courier Herald further reporting that it was 307 men and 10 women. Now, these are details that were not previously reported, so I think this is really important. The 307 men were being held at a detention facility in Folkestone, while the 10 women, including one who was pregnant, were being held at a nearby detention center. Now, on September 4th, as I've told you, this immigration raid was done, and it was done at an electric vehicle battery plant located in Georgia, and that plant was being built. It's in the process of being built by HLGA Battery Company, a joint venture between Hyundai Motor Group and LG Energy Solutions. So just by way of background, Hyundai, you all know that from cars, etc., but it's more than that, right? It's a major electronics kind of conglomerate and business, but this was the motor kind of side of it. And then LG, you've heard of that too, right? TVs, electronics, etc., another major South Korean conglomerate. So the LG Energy Solution part was in a joint venture agreement with Hyundai Motor Group to be able to do stuff. Okay. So here's where it goes. Most of the people that were detained, these Koreans that were detained, were here in the United States on a certain type of visa. Now, it's for short-term business that's to be done. It's either the things called a B-1 visa or something called an electronic system for travel authorization permit. So you're not supposed to be coming to be able to work while you're on these visas. But let me tell you why there is a gray area that deals with these types of visas. Number one, not only were people that were legally here working detained, but according to South Korean officials, these are employees of the South Korean companies that are working for these South Korean companies. They received visas to enter the United States as company workers, and they were working in labor under that status. So the companies have to understand what is happening here, and that's part of the reason why they're launching this investigation into these allegations of human rights violations. Now, another sourced South Korean information was from the Korea Times. And the Korea Times says this, that the detainees said that they lived in squalid detention facilities, that the raid not only was terrifying, but they were shackled, handcuffed, they were treated like criminals, and they had guns pointed at them. Again, totally on brand, right, for our federal immigration authorities here in the United States. They clearly, I don't know, are we supposed to get some comfort that they're clearly treating everybody the same damn way? While being transferred, hands and feet were chained. They were held alongside other people who had actually also crossed the border, crossed the border illegally. ICE agents told these detainees, including the South Koreans, sign these documents, didn't give them an explanation of what they were signing, or never informed them of what their rights were. Furthermore, there was no translations done of these documents, and these people, these detainees, were led to believe that if they signed these forms, they would just be let go. That was what they were led to believe. But no, once they signed the forms, they were arrested, and then they were shackled and or tied together with cable ties. So in these detention centers, personal belongings and phones confiscated as occurs, issued prison uniforms and given identification numbers. Sounds very Nazi-esque, right? Crammed into temporary facilities with moldy mattresses, no heating. Eventually, and actually I will say this, it sounds like the South Koreans were treated a little bit better than some of the other detainees we know about. They were later moved to two-person cells with toilets inside the living space, right? With no room for privacy, and the food was so poor they couldn't eat it. Now, how have South Koreans reacted to hearing the news that their nationals were treated this way? South Koreans have had rallies all over this past weekend in South Korea. There was a march that was staged close to the United States Embassy, including slogans that said, "We denounce the United States for arresting and detaining our people, and Trump must apologize." The umbrella labor union called the Korean Federation of Trade Unions says that they held a separate rally near City Hall accusing U.S. immigration authorities of unlawfully detaining Korean workers and also criticizing their government. Oh my gosh, look at that. First Amendment free speech. Criticizing the government of Korea for failing to protect its citizens while yielding to U.S. pressure. Anti-U.S. sentiment growing online, with the public voicing very strong criticism of Washington. People are directing blame at Washington, saying that the United States is refusing to issue proper visas because they want to protect its own labor market, but they are pushing ahead with an accelerated construction schedule that leaves these South Korean companies with no choice but to circumvent certain visa rules to send these workers over. Calls have emerged for Korea to scrutinize the status of Americans working in Korea, and this is where it gets rich. One person said, let's round up all the Americans teaching English here on tourist visas. Diplomacy should be reciprocal, end quote. Let me tell you something. South Koreans are very vocal about how they feel about American occupation in the country, which I have a distinct opinion. I think that we should always express gratitude to Americans for what they've done to help that country. But when you're getting treated this way, they have pride. Their pride in their country is very, very strong, and they're not going to tolerate Korean nationals being treated badly at the hands of Americans. Let's talk about some more allegations here, right? So Korean detainees said that they were treated like prisoners of war. The presidential chief of staff, Kang Hoon-sik, said this, quote, "We're in an age of new normal in dealing with the United States. The standard changes every time, and constantly there has to be deal making, not only on tariffs, but it'll also be the case with security issues." Now remember, these workers, they were building this multi-billion-dollar battery plant, which is crucial for Hyundai's electric vehicle building plans in the United States. So most of the people were either employed directly by LG Energy Solutions or by subcontractors for LG. The South Korean president said to Trump and the administration last week, Korean businesses will hesitate to make direct investments in the U.S. if these visa issues are not solved quickly. The South Korean president said the following, Korean businesses that have entered the U.S. are likely in a state of serious bewilderment. This isn't long-term permanent employment, but to establish facilities and equipment for factories. We need technicians to install machinery and equipment. The U.S. doesn't have such personnel, and they will not give visas for our workers to stay and work. Korean workers were led away in chains, and South Koreans are pissed. They're saying this is just yet another example of the subjugation of our people by foreign powers. Now, take a quick listen to this video that I found of one of the detainees describing how he feels since he went through this whole detention process at the hands of Americans.
이렇게 남아서 이러고 싶은 사람은 없었을 것 같아요. 지금 이렇게 상황 겪고 나서는 다음에도 다 같이 나갈까라는 생각도 좀 들기도 하고, 일단 비자는 어떻게 될지 모르겠지만은 굳이 좀 뭐 다시 나가야 될 사람은 또 나가야 되겠지만은. 지금 아직은 뭐 생각을 좀 해봐야 돼.
I mean, I don't blame him. Would you? Would you want to go back to the United States if you were there working, doing something that was ultimately for the benefit of America? To be creating a plant, to be building a plant, to be able to get it up and running when some crazy MAGA Karen who's running for Congress is calling ICE to report lies about what's happening there? And then you're treated like shit when you're in detention? Okay. And lastly, let's talk about this. The Korea Economic Daily gave the following info before we talk about MAGA Karen a little bit more in detail. Here's where this is. The Trump administration policy on immigration, this wholesale roundup of people without any consideration and due process. Let's talk about why this is totally screwing all Americans financially and into our economy. So here's the deal. That joint venture battery facility that was the subject of the raid, $4.3 billion, folks, among the largest projects in Georgia and expected to create 8,500 jobs once completed. 8,500 jobs. For whom? For Americans. You know, this us versus them mentality is just so messed up, right? Because these South Koreans are here to help build, to help train, to help get this thing up and running so 8,500 Americans can have jobs. But no, the Trump administration, the dumbasses with their heads so far up their asses when it comes to immigration, they're just sitting there and just rounding up people because this white freaking Republican chick decided to call ICE, right? Well, here, you're going to get even more freaking outrage when you hear this. The search warrant that was revealed, that was the part of this immigration raid. Are you ready? That search warrant, it was looking for 4 Latinos. And listen, I'm not even saying that that was kosher. Who the hell knows if that was legal, the grounds by which they were looking for these 4 Latinos? But I don't know. Last I checked, the Latinos are not the South Koreans, right? Alrighty. So now, this joint venture battery facility subject to the immigration raid, scheduled for completion later this year to supply battery cells to Hyundai's nearby EV factory, electric vehicle factory. That work has been suspended following the raid. No work being done. Nothing being done. Construction not happening. 8,500 jobs, not happening. At least 22 other factory sites involving Korean business groups in automotive, shipbuilding, steel, and electrical equipment halted. Because of this. Because of Trump. Listen, I blame this MAGA Karen biatch, but you know what? I blame Trump for this insanity. Korean conglomerates, including semiconductor giants like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix Inc., heavily investing in U.S. chip facilities, Samsung, etc. They're building battery plants with partners GM and Ford. Several of these sites rely on rotating teams of Korean engineers. There's also this, did you know? MAGA, Make American Shipbuilding Great Again, a joint U.S.-Korea shipbuilding project, is being affected by this. Hyundai Steel Company's construction of a U.S. steel mill, the expansion of local factories by HD Hyundai and Hyosung Heavy Industries and LS Electric. All of these projects require hundreds of employees from headquarters in Korea and partner companies to come here to be able to construct, build, and get it all up and running, including training of American workers. And yet all of them, poof, gone. And now these companies in South Korea are like, wait, time out. I don't know if I'm going to send my South Korean workers there if they're going to be treated like shit by the Trump administration. Korean companies with U.S. interests have frozen travel plans and recalled staff already in the U.S. over fears of further immigration raids. A Seoul company executive says, Korean workers are being treated like criminals for building factories that Washington itself lobbied for. If this continues, investment in the U.S. is going to be reconsidered. Unless visa arrangements for skilled Korean employees are settled through bilateral talks between South Korea and the United States, investment timetables worth more than $101 billion across multiple U.S. states will face serious delays and cost overruns. At a bilateral summit recently, Korea committed an extra $150 billion on top of a $350 billion agreement in investments, including $26 billion from Hyundai Motor. Right? But who do we have to thank for the stupidity and the economic downfall that's happening right now? It's Trump, MAGA, and Republicans. But who do we have to thank for that original venture project in the first place that was agreed upon to be able to even get up and running, and that was the subject of this battery plant? Former President Joe Biden in 2022 announced this joint venture project when he visited Seoul, and it was a pillar of his clean energy agenda. But guess what people are saying? And listen, this is from the Korean Global newspaper here, Korean Global publication. Trump, who has sought to roll back electric vehicle subsidies, has been skeptical of plants like the one that got raided. Why? Because Trump is beholden to the fossil fuel companies, right? His billionaire buddies, they love the fossil fuels. It's making so much damn money. And so Trump suddenly is going to what? Be okay with immigration raids on electric battery plants? I mean, this shit is wild. So let's really quickly walk through this Tori Branum chick, because once you see more details about her, not only are you going to laugh, but you're also going to be pissed. So I checked this lady's website out. She's running for office. I mean, first of all, filters are not your friend, honey, no matter how much you try. But here we go. So this woman's been divorced 5 times. Listen, I don't pass judgment, but I do say that the common denominator in those 5 divorces is Tori Branum. She's 47, again, filters lady. And here's the deal. She is a small business owner and firearms trainer. Let's just take a hot second, please. Small business owner. Don't you think you should have some empathy, some idea about people working? Not sure how that business is working out for her. And the fact that she's a firearms trainer should make you scared that this lady actually has, any type of ability to be around a firearm. So she has a background in psychology, and she's worked as a behavioral therapist for the Pulaski County Schools in Georgia. So she's near your kids, people. Might be word too. She describes herself as an America First candidate, and she says, we need more conservative women in Washington. I have no doubt I'm the most qualified candidate. You know what, lady? Let me tell you something. Keep your nose out of other people's business. One, my mama taught me that. Two, what a wretched human being you are to be running around because you saw somebody who looks different than you because, I don't know, they were Asian. And I'm sure you didn't use the word Asian, Tori. I'm sure you used another word. But you saw somebody that looked different. And I don't know what set you off, but you sitting there narking. And by the way, here, play this video quickly and take a listen because, by the way, it's not just this plant. Take a listen.
I just want to say for all the haters, just wait until the rest of the story comes out about this raid. And the other information that I passed along about some other factories has a little bit to do with human trafficking and people being brought here against their will to this country, basically put in slave labor. It's all going to come out. It's going to come out. Probably there are dead bodies buried at some of these places because they didn't want to call the police and let them know that they were hiring illegal labor. That's all going to come out.
Oh, so she's now called it on other plants and other factories and other locations. So this woman is single-handedly going to be responsible for the potential demise of commercial and trade relationships between South Korea and the United States. Why? Because she saw a whole bunch of people that were, I guess we're brown-skinned too, right? We look different. Maybe she thinks we're yellow. Is that what she thinks we are? A whole bunch of yellow, slanty-eyed people working somewhere, and Tori Branum's got a problem with us working. This is what's totally fucked up about this country, that this woman feels empowered to be able to do something like this. And then what's even worse is that we have dumb, incompetent people in the federal government that are not doing their due diligence to figure out what in the actual hell is happening at that battery plant before they go in and they raid it and they take 375 South Korean nationals into custody. And I would be remiss to not talk with the people that got taken into custody, right? I mean, I may be focusing on the South Koreans right now, but there are other people that got taken into custody, and you and I both know they had their due process rights violated, didn't they? This is a direct result of Trump, his administration, his immigration policies. You must be mad about this. You must be outraged and demand accountability because this is the type of stuff that is going to hurt all of us in so many different ways, not just civil rights, not just rolling back rights, but also financially. This is the largest economic development project in the history of the state of Georgia, and now it's been stopped. And you just heard from South Korean sources themselves that they're going to hesitate about doing anything in the U.S. Because why would you? Why would you send anybody to this country these days? This place is crazy. See you on the other side. Katie Phang here. We launched the Katie Phang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. Straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.